America, and so involved in our Rotary Promise Scholars Program, and Alex Novak, Treatment Facilities Director, Metropolitan Sewer District. Before I hand you the pins, the presentation of Paul Harris Fellow recognition is the Rotary Foundation's way of expressing its appreciation for a substantial contribution to its humanitarian and educational programs. And of course, it's named after the Rotary founder, Paul Harris, a Chicago lawyer who started Rotary International with 3 of his business partners in 1905. With each gift, with each Paul Harris Fellowship, we move closer to a world of peace and goodwill today, as these club members and Paul Harris Fellows have made donations to the foundation or who have had donations made in their name, either at the initial $1,000 level or successive levels. And that's why some folks are Paul Harris +3, Paul Harris +6, Paul Harris +8, as Dr. Kara will receive today. Each gift to the Rotary Foundation is a commitment to peace and a better life for people across the world whom we may never meet, but whom we serve. Thank you, friends, for your support of the Rotary Foundation through your Paul Harris Fellowship. And as I present the pins to these dear friends, Paul Harris Fellows in the room, would you please stand? Boyce Martin. Dr. Raja Kara. Alex Novak. Kevin Lynch. Thank you. Betty Russo. And Tom Crimmins. Congratulations all. You know, and throughout, again, I've mentioned this before, Google Paul Harris Fellow and read some of the testimonials that are there. I mean, we don't become Paul Harris Fellows for the recognition. It is all about nourishing the foundation so that the foundation then can go out and bless the world through service. At last year's large club conference in Nashville, there were 3 dominant themes that were shared with incoming presidents. Very easy 3 to remember: membership, membership, and membership. Rotary's impact starts with our members, with you. People who, like you are, see a world where people unite and take action so that there can be lasting change for the betterment of all. At club meetings in communities across the globe, maybe some meeting this very moment, our people of action come together to strengthen their connections to friends and neighbors and their commitment to improving lives worldwide. I love being a Rotary member, and I hope you do too, because it connects each of us with a diverse group of professionals who share a passion to give back. Through our regular meetings and in our committees and at our events, we discuss our community's needs and then do something to address them. We connect with other leaders who are changing the world and therefore gaining skills and understandings of ways that we can change the world individually better. We certainly expand our leadership and our professional skills, and we catch up with good friends and meet new ones. So again, over the course of the next few meetings, it's going to be my pleasure to reintroduce to you those new friends that have joined our club in what I call the class of 2017-2018. We're going to feature 3 today, and if you could come forth, please, Teresa, Steve, and John. Fascinating people. Start with Teresa. Teresa Leeser is CEO of NeuroCures, and we thank Mike Richardson and Joe Ackerman for sponsoring her. Teresa's professional career before NeuroCures included over 20 years of managing Fortune 100 healthcare programs, experiences such as Hoffman LaRoche, Merck Labs, and Bristol Myers Squibb. I found this interesting. Teresa's category experience and expertise areas include, big breath, neurology, osteoporosis, oncology, virology, anti-infectives, antifungals, rheumatology, anesthesiology, dermatology, cardiovascular, pain management, gastroenterology, immunology, and regenerative medicine. That's all she knows. Steve Carrick. Steve Carrick is Director of Consulting Services with Mountjoy, Chilton, Medley. His sponsors were Mike Mountjoy and Leland Woodmansey. Steve is a graduate of Leadership Louisville, and he's deeply involved in our community. Listen to this, the quintessential service above self. He has served on, or is currently serving on, boards for organizations that include Blackacre Conservancy, Wellspring, KET, University of Louisville Alumni Board, Louisville Forum, the Salvation Army, Kentucky Humane Society, and the Kentucky Society of CPAs. Hey, thanks, Steve, for caring so much about our community, and welcome. And John Leshney is Chief Impact Officer of the Ali and All of Us initiative at the Muhammad Ali Center. John's sponsors were Kevin Lynch and Ken Grossman. Thank you, gentlemen. John previously served as the Senior Vice President of the V Foundation for Cancer Research. John also served as a liaison with the White House during Ronald Reagan's presidency. John also received a dual appointment to the U.S. House of Representatives Veterans Affairs Committee staff, where he received national awards for his service. He's a graduate of Xavier University. I understand received some awards there as well. John, welcome to our club. We're so blessed to have you. Our Rotary Club is honored to have you three as members and friends. Thank you for bringing so much to our club, and keep up the great work. We appreciate you. We'll have more new members that we'll reintroduce next week. And now another dear friend, Neville Blakemore. Neville will introduce today's speaker. Neville is chair of the Great Northern Building Products LLC. Neville, thank you very much for introducing Lisa today.
Good afternoon. So there are two parts to Lisa's introduction or biography, the official and the unofficial. So the official goes like this. Lisa is the leader of GLI's Enterprise Corps, an entrepreneurial support organization for the Louisville region. She is responsible for the development of innovation-driven, technology-based companies through one-on-one consultation services, capital access, talent attraction, key strategic introductions, and business coaching. She leads the development and implementation of the region's talent attraction strategy, Live in Lou, aimed at getting people to move back or to Louisville. Her work has focused on Gazelle Companies, which has earned her U.S. Economic Development Administration's Excellence in Economic Development Award. A lot of economic there, but you get the idea. A finalist for the Cornet Global Economic Development Leadership Award, and honorable mention for the International Economic Development Council's Excellence in Economic Development. She got her MBA from Miami University as well as her MBA. So that's the official version. The unofficial version begins in 2004 when she and her family moved to Louisville and she took my job. All right, I'm over this, clearly, you can see. But I'm from Louisville, but lived away for my 20s and 30s. And so when I was trying to work my way back here and find work, I met with Kent Euler, this great guy, and he's like, oh man, you'd be great. We're starting this thing at the Enterprise Corps, GLI, go over there, get the job. I went, and I got nowhere. All right, so that's the unofficial version for Lisa's biography. But in our lives, I think we all agree, there are times when you meet people and you just like them. They are just absolutely good people. And Lisa Bajorinas is one of those people. So it's a great honor to introduce Lisa Bajorinas, Executive Director of Enterprise Corps.
Well, thank you for that very innovative and creative introduction, Neville. I've heard this story once before, and he loves to tell this story, as you can imagine. Thank you so much. I also want to take just a moment to thank you as Rotarians for truly all that you do in our community. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I will make one correction, though. My alma mater is the University of Miami, different school. So I like to claim that we are the actual University of Miami, the U down in the city that actually has a whole university named after it versus that other school that some people know of in Ohio. It is only here in Louisville that I have to sometimes explain that difference. Thank you so much. So, as you can see, we are going to talk about entrepreneurship, and especially, and I am very excited to talk about the year of the entrepreneur. And we have some very special things that are happening in this year of the entrepreneur. In fact, we have 4 huge events, some which have just recently happened and some that are still yet to happen, that will never happen again. And our city is uniquely poised for these 4 events that round out our year of the entrepreneur. But first, I want to just take you back a bit and give you a little bit of perspective. So why entrepreneurship? Why does entrepreneurship matter? Why do founders embark on a very high-risk game of starting a business? Why does Enterprise Corps matter and the role that we have? And why is this important to our startup community, or sometimes we call it our ecosystem? And it all stems back to innovation. Innovation is the key to entrepreneurship. And innovation matters because it's innovation that attracts talent, and it is innovation that attracts that talent that creates a very diverse economy. And when you have a diverse economy, that then enables businesses to create, it allows businesses to expand, and then it allows for business attraction to happen. All of that then creates jobs, and those jobs create wealth. And when you have wealth creation, it leads to reinvestment. So all of this is to say that it's innovation at the start that creates a growing regional economy. And so that's why entrepreneurship matters. So in the life of a founder, an entrepreneur, as they embark on their journey to create their startup, at the heart of what Enterprise Corps does every single day is to sit down and work with founders, with entrepreneurs, one-on-one, eyeball to eyeball. And we're really trying to help them to understand 3 things. What is the problem they're trying to solve? How big is it? Then we're trying to work with them in determining what is their innovation, their solution to that problem. And then very importantly, the third thing is, how will they make money with this particular venture? Very important. And so as you can see from left to right, this is the path that a startup typically takes, and we're helping to advance them to that next milestone in this path. And so we're working with them to understand who their customer is, how they can acquire customers earlier, how to work through their solution, how will they finance their business, do they need a mentor, and how can we make the right introductions to access the resources that will allow them to be successful. Now, we are a great aggregator of data points. So in the last 18 months, so this is 18-month information you're looking at, Enterprise Corps has served 288 startup companies. So sitting down and working with 288 companies directly. And then from there, we also are in the classrooms. And so we're impacting about 239 students, and these are both high school students as well as college age level students and their entrepreneurial aspirations and ventures. And then 2 data points, we have now assisted 70 startups with accessing funding. And this is all sources of funding. This may be grant funding, this may be non-dilutive funding, this may be pitch competition funding, this may be equity funding, and even getting them connected to potentially debt-based financing, depending on the stage and nature of their business and what fits them best. So with those 70 startups that have been funded by a variety of sources, this yields about $28 million in investment in those companies in our region over the last 18 months. So those are some good data points to have, and we've been tracking those since 2005. So to round out that picture a bit more, this graph gives you an idea of the history of investment in our startups right here in our region. And you can see that investment in general very much parallels the climate of our economic activity here. So when we are in a recession starting around 2008, 2009, you can see lower amounts of investment in startups. But most recently, you see some pretty significant upticks, right, in 2015 and in 2016. And those 2 years are asterisked, because I do want to highlight the fact that we do have one pretty significant outlier here in our region. So we give great congratulations and kudos to Apellis Pharmaceuticals, led by Cedric Francois, for being able to raise over $60 million in investment in not one round, but he's now done it twice. And so that's why you see in those years some pretty high upticks in the amount of investment in early stage companies. If you were to extract that outlier and what he's been able to accomplish for Apellis, you will see that in the last 2 years, we've been right about $36 million in investment overall for our region in a 1-year period. So it's definitely on the increase there. Now, the number of companies funded and the amount invested in them is very important, but we have come up with a new measure, a new metric. This is very unique to our region in Louisville. It is owned by Louisville. No one else has this measure. It's our own. So we can define it any way we want. And we call it our $1 million baby. Okay? $1 million babies. So what is a $1 million baby? A $1 million baby is the designation that we give to a startup company when they do one of two things. And these are very important, significant things they do. They either raise $1 million in equity investment in a single round, so at least $1 million equity raise, or they cross the threshold for the very first time of $1 million in sales revenue. Either one of those accomplishments is significant in the life of a startup. And especially when you think about the fact that only 5% of all startups created ever cross the 1 million mark in sales revenue. Only 5% make it that far. So these are two pretty significant accomplishments. So a little more about our $1 million babies. We went back and we did some digging and some research, and we said, well, how many $1 million baby companies have we ever had in our region? So from 2012 until 2016, we had roughly about, say, like 8 to 10. 8 to 10 per year. Okay, we've got a benchmark. And then we said, let's increase that in 2017 as a goal by 20%. So we'll strive for 10 $1 million baby companies in 2017. But we had to have a strategy in order to make that happen, and that strategy was to utilize lots of community partners to put programs in place for our startups so that we can teach them how to sell and acquire customers earlier. Cheapest form of revenue is sales revenue, right? We also put programs out there to get them matched with a mentor. And we put programs out there to teach them how to market themselves to a greater and wider audience. And so with those programs that we've just launched just recently, we piloted them just like a startup does, and then we launched them into the marketplace with many partners. And we actually ended 2017 with $17 million babies in one single year. So that is a great accomplishment, yeah? So very exciting, $17 million babies in 17. Now, I will tell you, each year we start over again from a base of 0. So each year we start our count over again, and each year we want to increase. So our goal for 2020 was to double the number of million-dollar babies from 8 to 16. So our goal still sits at 16 in 2020, but again, it's a new year in 2018, and we're starting from 0 to grow. So we do have a lot of significant high-impact and fast-growth companies here, but it's really important when a third-party source tells you you've got some great successes. And I'm sure you're all familiar with Ernst Young's Entrepreneur of the Year awards, and especially in the Ohio Valley here, they recognized last year 7 companies in our region as Ernst Young Entrepreneur of the Year finalists. And then 2, Mark Landwehr's with Car Keys Express and John Wagner with HMS Global Maritime were recognized as Ernst Young Entrepreneur of the Year winners. So this also is of significance for the region. Moving right along, I know you're very familiar with Inc. 500 companies. We have 2 Inc. 500 companies that were recognized, and we have PacMed, who has grown by an astonishing 3,400% over the course of the last 3 years in the healthcare space, and they were at number 118. And then at number 194, we have Ladder Up, which grew over 2,200% in the insurance space. So 2 companies make the Inc. 500 from our region. And just so you know, below that, we had 22 additional companies who made the Inc. 5,000 last year. So that is also a nice testimonial to our startup community. We are now home to 5 brand new local chapters of national organizations. So, we are now home to Startup Grind, which is a monthly meetup event powered by Google. We are now also have a chapter of 1 Million Cups, another meetup group that is a Kauffman Foundation program. That group is a national organization that meets monthly. We now have the Acton Children's Business Fair for kids to learn entrepreneurship, and Louisville is now a Lemonade Day city. So you remember growing up as kids and having those neighborhood lemonade stands. That was your first foray into the startup world. And these kids are learning entrepreneurship in classes and setting up their lemonade stands for participation in Lemonade Day. Right now, we have a brand new accelerator called WILD. So WILD is focused on educating and mentoring women-led startups, and they just formed about 6-7 weeks ago. They're in the middle of their cohort program right now, and they'll be wrapping up their first ever program for women-led startups called WILD. And then you should know that Startup Weekend is a great opportunity for everyone to participate, and in 54 hours on various different teams, they can create a startup, and it can be done that quickly as an early stage company. So Louisville, around the world, has held the most consecutive startup weekends in a row at the number 12. We hold that distinction and that honor. So it is a very robust and resourceful startup community for our ecosystem. But let's get back to my story. I told you that there were going to be 4 great events going on this year, and I want to tell you about them. So first, you may be familiar with Endeavor. Endeavor Global is a national network organization that has chapters around the world, and Louisville was the third city selected to be an Endeavor chapter here. And Endeavor primarily looks among the cities that they have a chapter, and they identify the most fast growth opportunities, startups or early stage companies, and they give them three things: access to mentors, access to capital, access to markets. Those three things. And they expect those companies to then give back to their local communities because they want those companies to grow where they are and create those jobs, right? So the big event that happened is that for the first time ever, Endeavor Global held their international selection panel in North America, and they chose Louisville to hold that ISP. That happened right after Derby over 3 days, a very rigorous and competitive process for companies who came from around the world here to go ahead and present and work through their pitches to judges and coaches and business mentors as part of Endeavor. So that was a big event to happen right after Derby, the Endeavor ISP. And locally, we did have another company that was selected. Mixer Direct is now the 8th company in Endeavor Louisville. So congratulations to them. Number 2, big event. You may remember that in 2016, we invited Steve Case, founder of AOL, to come to Louisville to be our keynote speaker at a large gathering we were having. And he was very impressed with all that we had going on in our startup community at that time. And so very recently, we lobbied very hard, and through online and social media voting, and especially with the University of Louisville's support, we were able to get on the Rise of the Rest tour and have Steve Case come back with his Rise of the Rest bus and his Rise of the Rest crew to come back to Louisville. That's a big opportunity that we capitalized on. We beat out Phoenix for that opportunity to be that city, right? So that is awesome. So what's Rise of the Rest? Very quickly, Steve Case's thesis is this: there's a lot of startup activity, a lot of capital resources on the coasts, but there's so much innovation happening in the middle of the country. Therefore, the rise of the rest, those of us in the middle of the country, and that's what he advocates for, and that's his tour as he travels around through the middle of the country with his Rise of the Rest team. So there you see the bus rolling into Louisville. One of the nice key events that happened was a pitch competition that evening with his Rise of the Rest team. 60 applications for this pitch competition by great startups here. 8 were selected as finalists, and a U of L graduate, Maggie Galloway, CEO of InScope Medical Solutions, was selected as the winner. $100,000 investment by his Rise of the Rest fund in that company. So congratulations to Maggie, and I know she's going to do us proud as she always has and does. All right, number 3. Only this year, our own Enterprise Corps Evening of Entrepreneurship. So this is our startup community's largest gathering annually of all of our players in the startup community. So this is entrepreneurs, investors, mentors, business leaders, high school and college entrepreneurs who all come together to celebrate entrepreneurship in our entire region. So we provide a state of entrepreneurship address, we award our Enterprise Corps Award, and importantly, we bring in an outside keynote speaker. So 2 years ago, it was Steve Case, and this year will be no less. We've invited Diane Hessen, who's from the Boston tech community. She is an entrepreneur, she is an investor, she is a marketer, she is a researcher. All of that combined, she will come and share her stories and her experience and wisdom with our startup community, all in an effort to lift up our aspirations for what we want to be as a startup community. So we're very excited. June 26th, and I have left some flyers at the front desk for you. We invite you to attend that. But why is this year special? Because I said it happens every year. It's because this year we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Enterprise Corps. So even long before me, Neville, 20th, 20 years. I know you all are sustainable, but Enterprise Corps in the startup world, 20 years is a long time. So we are excited to celebrate with our whole business community and startup community our 20th anniversary, only this year. And then finally, number 4, big, huge event. Steve Case loved Louisville when he came the first time, 2016. He loved the resources, the enthusiasm, the startup companies he got to visit with. But he said, you know what? There's one thing you're missing. You're missing an entrepreneur center, a physical space for your entrepreneurs to gather, for your entrepreneurs, your investors, your mentors, your service providers, for those informal collisions together to solve problems and advance startups. And this is where your programs and education and workshops should come from as well. A gathering place for all things entrepreneurial. You're missing that entrepreneur center. I challenge you. Ugh. You know what we do. We're Louisville. Step up to a challenge. And so we're very fortunate that my friend Galen Powers, head of Mobile MedTech, stepped up to that challenge, and with investment partners Citus Corporation, as well as support from PNC Bank, said, we're going to make that happen. So at 900 East Main Street in Nulu, right next door to Lincoln Elementary, 1 block from Quill's Coffee House, is our new Entrepreneur Center. It's under renovation right now. It's coming along. It's amazing. It's applied for and received historical tax credits, which is great. But it's a 40,000 square foot facility where entrepreneurship will be housed and have a home and a gathering place. And so that grand opening, which I also invite you to, will be later toward the end of this year. So all of this is to say that I need your help. I need you, I want you, I invite you. I ask that you attend our Evening of Entrepreneurship event. All are welcome. Be a mentor. You all have experience in your business, in your personal lives, your philanthropic lives to share to our startup founders, and they need you. So go to mentorlou.com where you can apply to be a mentor. Participate in a beta test or a pilot test with a startup. They validate or they appreciate your validation of their solutions and their innovation. They need you to do that. Invest in a startup of your choosing. I can help you get connected if that is your cup of tea. I'd be happy to. And at the very least, please follow us on social media. You can follow us, share us, retweet us with @EnterpriseLou and @StartupLou. That's how you can be engaged in the digital world as well and be in the know. So that's my ask of you, and please know that all of this is in an effort for us to build a greater Startup Lou. Thank you.
Take a few questions.
I'd be happy to.
We do have time for a few questions before we adjourn. Lisa, thank you. So what are the most common mistakes that startups make which inhibit them from becoming a $1 million baby?
Very good question. So I would first answer that to say that oftentimes when they are identifying a problem, it might be a problem they look at that is something they might have personally experienced, but they need to take themselves out of the equation, because often I will say to an entrepreneur, you are not your customer. They must validate that the problem that they wish to solve is large enough and painful enough so that somebody will pay for the solution. So that might be number one, very early on mistake, and that's where we kind of guide them. I would also say that another mistake they often made is they think that if they have a great idea, like, I have a great idea, so now the money will come, right? No, that's not how it works, right? Doesn't work quite like that. So then we have that very frank discussion about how will they finance their business along the way. So those might be my two anecdotal examples.
Okay. Neville?
$1 million babies. back to 2012. Do you know what it was, what they were all the way back to 2005 or further, just to get an even broader
We
historical
don't have
reference?
that data. We've only been able to go back in all of our companies funded and how much they raised back to about 2012. So what would be awesome is if we could also figure out a way, so if there's any data scientists out there, I need you. How can we figure out how many Columbus and Nashville and St. Louis and Indianapolis, how many million-dollar babies do they have per capita? Per capita. That would be a great data point to know, to be able to begin to measure against peer cities.
Thank you for coming today. My name's Larry Sloan, and my question has to do with investing in startups. I've probably invested in about 10 over my lifetime, and 9 of them went bad. One was
You're on par with everyone else. Thank you.
one of them was very good, though, so that made up for the others. But at my age, I'm not particularly interested in investing in startups, but if I were to be, or if I were to do my investing over again, what would be the best way to do it?
Yes. So the best way to get started is to become, first of all, engaged within our startup community, to kind of get the lay of the land of who are the startups that we have here and what industry sectors are they in, because there's got to be a very strong alignment between the investor's interests or experience with what they choose to invest in their portfolio. And another great way to become engaged as well is simply by attending, for example, a venture connectors meeting, or attending Startup Grind, or attending 1 Million Cups, just to see how startup companies pitch what their problem is that they're solving for, their solution, and how they plan to make money. And then as you create your network, and then have introductions to other angel investors, you build on that education. And we also have some formalized education for investors as well as entrepreneurs.
Ken, with our final question.
Lisa, thanks so much for coming. I also want to thank Henry Hauser, who
Where's
I know is
Henry?
here somewhere and is one of your biggest advocates.
Yes, he is.
I wonder if you could just give us real quick a couple stories about one or two of your real successful startups, how they started and where they are now.
Oh, I'd be happy to. So I'm happy to kind of describe a little bit further InScope Medical. I mentioned that Maggie Galloway was the recent recipient of the Rise of the Rest investment. So Maggie comes through the entrepreneurial MBA program at the University of Louisville, and she and her team form InScope Medical, and this is a medical device company. So they have identified that within particularly the emergency medical arena, when there is a situation where an EMT technician is on site and they've got to get through the esophagus and get through, a problem that is happening there, that the current devices aren't always adequate to be able to see through a lot of the fluids and things like that, and they've got seconds to save lives. And so they are creating a laryngoscope that actually combines the ability with light and with being able to use your cell phone through an app to be able to view what is actually happening through the esophagus, to get that laryngoscope there for a clear airway so that that person can very quickly be able to breathe again. Saving lives, emergency medical technicians, building a medical device. So InScope Medical went on to win many college-level business plan competitions. They were there and selected to ring the bell at NASDAQ. They've gone on to raise money both here locally as well as in neighboring states. They were selected to Techstars Health in Los Angeles, and they have really done quite well. And so it's no doubt that, that's why Maggie was the recipient of that investment. I know that you got to hear from Allie Tretman as well with Wicked Sheets not long ago. Also a great startup company, simple. People sweat at night, whether it's due to medication, whether it's due to age, whether it's due to, being a cancer patient, a variety of reasons, athletes. And so they needed a solution for how to get a good night's sleep. So she literally took the technology similar to Under Armour, made bed sheets, and it worked. And now it was a matter of distribution. right? So that is another example of a great startup company here that's done well.
We did hear from Allie earlier, and raise your hand if you recall Maggie's presentation. What was that, about a year and a half ago? Wasn't that fascinating?
Yes.
Yeah.
So great company, great champion for our startup community.
Lisa, thank you very
You're
much.
so welcome. Thank you.